killed by a shot in the head or a heavy blow to the skull.
Hey, true believers. I know October has come and gone, but if you're like me, any time is a good time for a horror film. And may I suggest one here on this New Year's Eve. Today we are going over Motel Hell from October of 1980. And I gotta say, guys, this film was awesome. I was just happening to do some grocery shopping at Walmart, saw this movie laying in the $5 bin, and I went, isn't this movie new? Because I thought it was just kind of like one of those one-offs, or, they kind of do those direct-to-DVD films, because I'd never heard of this before. So I bought it, not thinking anything of it, and then finally had a moment to sit down quietly and watch it. And it was great. It's one of those ones where they don't take themselves too seriously. I think a lot of modern horror film, because a lot of the slashers and a lot of the really great scare attacks come from the late 60s, 70s, 80s, and even the early 90s. So at that point, you have to ask yourself, how can you top that? And I think a lot of filmmakers over the years have found ways to reinvent it, either making it kind of meta or funny or satirical. And that's kind of what this film is. Sort of like what Sam Raimi did when he made Evil Dead 2, is instead of trying to do straight horror, he decided to put some satirical comedy in it. And it just worked out great. And it's still one of the great cult classics along with the original and Army of Darkness. Same here. Kevin Connor directed this. And we have Roy Calhoun playing Vincent Smith, Nancy Parsons as Ida Smith. And may I point out here that I did not, the whole time I'm watching this film, realize that this was Ballbreaker from the Porky's film. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you guys definitely need to go see Porky's, because she has a bone to pick with a particular one-eyed monster. We have Nina Axelrod as Terry, Paul Linke as Sheriff Bruce Smith, Wolfman Jack as the Reverend Billy. And if you're not in the know, at the time, Wolfman Jack was a very famous DJ. This movie, the Smiths, particularly Vincent and Ida, have a hotel called Motel Hell, and they have a farm attached to it. And you come to find out that Farmer Smith here sells smoked, like beef jerkies and meats, and people just cannot seem to get enough of it. And Calhoun, oh my God, he nails this performance. He just has this very Southern charm about him. And he just is this type of guy you want to sit down and have a beer with. Ida, on the other hand, she's a little more socially awkward, and Parsons just plays her to a T, where she can kind of be sweet, but you can see that something is bubbling underneath the surface. And I think what really sets this apart from the other films from this time period is the Smiths remind me of the Sawyer family from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But as where with that film where it went straight horror and slasher and gore, this film, even though the subject matter is dark, Connor found a way to kind of make it funny and really reel you in to this family, because we're introduced to Terry. Her and her lover, Bo, are going down the highway in this motorcycle, and they have an accident. And you see that Smith, takes them in, starts to take care of Terry, and there's kind of this schism, like immediately off the top, between him and Ida. Because she doesn't, you can kind of see that she doesn't want other people in her little bubble. And, they bring her back to health, and when you're watching it, because we have no choice. We're the viewers. There's nothing we can really say, as much as we like to scream at the film during horror films. She really starts to get charmed by the Smith family, and as are we. So I think, along with Terry, we get this feeling of Stockholm Syndrome. We are then introduced to Bruce, and he comes off as a really nice guy, but you can kind of see his mannerisms compared to the Smiths, where Vincent and Ida are a lot closer. And every time Ida's around Terry and Bruce and she tries to bring up anything about the family recipe, Vincent just gets really violent about it. Like, he smacks her, and he tries to play it off as a joke between brother and sister, but you can see something is happening. So a lot of you, when you sit down to watch it, let me give you a warning right off the top. The beginning is slow. And I'm okay with that. A lot of people will just kind of nope out. And I've been noticing this, and I think that has to do with a lot of like modern, having social media and having stuff immediately brought to you. You have to remember that you have to take things slow to establish stuff, so when you get to the payoff, it means something. And I think that's where a lot of horror films drop nowadays. So after all of this buildup, the curtain is finally revealed, and we see Farmer Smith's secret garden. So if you don't want this movie spoiled, this is where I'm going to kind of go into spoilers. I know it's an older film, and people are like, well, why are you worried about spoiling a 20-something-year-old film? There's people that have never heard of this. I've never heard of it. So everything that I saw on this was kind of a surprise. So go check it out. Like I said, it's cheap at Walmart. Worth it to put in your horror movie collection. Now let's proceed. So what happens is Farmer Smith, you kind of find out where his meat comes from. It is the flesh of humans. He buries, humans up to their necks in the dirt, slits their throats just enough to where they can't talk or scream, but they're still alive. Like, it's surgically, precisionally done with antiseptic. When you sew it up, a suture? And they're kind of fed like animals. And it is haunting because when you go into the secret garden, all you can hear is just this monotone. And Smith is not prejudiced in who he takes. He actually, Bob, the livestock inspector who comes and checks on Farmer Smith's pigs, he starts getting a little too nosy about the area, and he becomes a victim. And what I was talking about with Terry and the Stockholm Syndrome is when her and Bo have the accident, it's not super clear if the accident was intentional or accidental. And here you see Bo. And you come to find out that Farmer Smith lays traps for unsuspecting victims. And that's where he gets his meat from. And the whole time I'm watching this, and there's scenes where people come in and buy the meat and like, I just can't get enough of this. I can't help but hear Charleston Heston in the back of my head screaming, Soylent Green is people! Soylent Green is people! But as Farmer Smith says, it takes all kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent's fritters. So in a nutshell, that's the movie. I don't want to go too far into it. I don't want to spoil everything. Let's just say there's a great little nod to zombie films in this movie. There is plenty towards the end, plenty of gore and an awesome chainsaw battle and a pig head. What do I mean by that? Check out the movie. Speaking of, if you guys have ever listened to Wayne Static's Pig Hammer film, CD, which is absolutely amazing. It was kind of one of Wayne's last albums before he passed. There's a song on there, and at the beginning, you hear this audio clip.
This is the sheriff. You are violating the law.
And I never knew where that came from. And then I watched this film, and I went, oh, crap. So that's where Wayne got it. And when it's put in the context of the scene, it's quite hilarious. It involves Terry and a quote-unquote lover's lane. And because Bruce is the sheriff, yeah, all sorts of hilarious shenanigans ensue. So guys, Motel Hell, awesome film. It's not like one of those over-the-top, highly produced films. It's low budget, looks great, and it gives you that feeling of the late 70s, early 80s. I highly advise watching it, to ring in the new year. So with that said, everyone, please stay safe tonight. Have a great day, and I will check y'all in the new year, true believers.
Fool can be killed by a shot in the head or a heavy blow to the skull.